It's funny to think about how many countless hours I spent thumbing through these guidebooks, growing up as a collector of things. So the first thing I ever collected was coins. I guess it was just that collector bug coming out in me when I noticed that I was finding a wheat penny in my change. I got like an Indian penny, a buffalo nickel or something, just as change that I got back from the store or the theater or something, now that I think about it, and it just sparked my imagination. And so I started trying to collect, a penny from every year as far back as I could go, and I was amazed when you get to 1943 and it's a steel penny. So I got this book, I got those cardboard coin collecting things, I can't remember what you call them, but you put all your coins in them, and it's got the years and the mint it came from, and I would just thumb through this book and learn all about, now this is U.S. coins, United States coins. I think they started putting out this official red book in 1946. It's still going today. I got this book at 12 and I learned all about U.S. coins, and I just got into collecting. I just tried to get them from change, and then I got family and friends involved, and then I would go to the flea market and get coins. I never had anything expensive. Look, this was weekly allowance money, but it was just the fact that I could collect something and put them in display cases. In the late 90s, I sold my entire collection, but since then I have started collecting again, and I've branched out, tried to get coins from every country I could get a hold of. I do like the different types of U.S. coins. I have a small collection. We may see if it grows. I'd need to put them in a nice display, and of course, once I do that, that'll ignite a collecting bug of coins again in me. In fact, I actually joined a numismatists group at the time, and I would get the numismatists newspaper, and I would attend local auctions. I really got into it. So let's put that aside. Then I got into comic book collecting, of which I still collect comics to this day. And I got this book in 1988, 1989. So it's copyrighted 1988. I think the comics in here go up to November or so of 1988. So this book probably came out in 1989. I would have been 15 years old then. I probably at that point had enough comics in my collection, probably a big box full. And I just picked up this book at the Record Trader One, my comic store at the time, and I got to learn a bit about all the comics I didn't know about and all the comics I had. In fact, while I have it here, I just want to go over some of the prices of what it would have cost me to get a comic book at this time when I got this book, and I don't know, I will adjust it for inflation, and then maybe how much they cost today. So Action Comics #1, first appearance of Superman, basically the first superhero comic book ever, from June of 1938, right? In here, $28,650. You adjust that for inflation here in 2025, you're talking $74,776. It sold in 2024, last year, for $6 million. So if you had a lot of money back then, that would have been something to invest in. Now, I also have this. It's a facsimile of the 1970 first volume of this Overstreet comic book price guide companion, is where it started. And in here, 1970, so 4 years before I was born, you could get Action Comics #1 for $300. Adjust that for inflation, you're talking almost $2,400 of today's money. But you know what? I got that kind of money to put down on an Action Comics #1, thinking that 1970 to 2025, you're talking 55 years. There's your retirement right there, $6 million. But who has that kind of foresight and time machine? Let's do a few more. Amazing Fantasy 15, first appearance of Spider-Man, $1,600, or, adjust for inflation, you're talking $4,176. It sold in 2021 for $3.6 million. But back in 1970, you could get it for $16. $16. Of course, adjusted for inflation, you're talking $127. But really, at the time, the comic book would have only been 8 years old. Nice investment, though, right? I actually typed up a huge list of all the comics that I have that are valuable, all of the other big expensive comics nowadays that sold for record prices, but I'm not going to sit here for an hour just going over numbers. So let's just move on, because I got something a little more interesting. Well, you know what? Let me talk about. This is from Robert Overstreet. Now, from what I can tell, he's still alive, and we share a birthday. So if what I'm reading is true, this year, when I turn 51, he'll turn 87. I don't know if any of that's true. So again, moving on. Now we get to this and this. Leonard Maltin's movie and video guides, 1996 and 1999. So for Christmas of 1979, my family got a VCR and a microwave. We also happened to be renting a place at the time that had HBO. And so we started recording movies off of HBO. By 1983, when we moved out of there, and we never had cable or HBO again growing up, but there were now video rental stores, we would rent movies. But it wasn't until 1994 when my daughter's mom's ex-brother-in-law gave us a big box of VHS tapes. And it had all the cool stuff, science fiction and action. And it kind of launched my collecting of films. So let's just read Leonard Maltin's reviews of some special movies to me that I would have really been interested in looking up in these books at the time. By 1988, I had watched Rocky IV and The Karate Kid 2 in 3 separate languages. I watched the movies here in America, loved them, but I also took a Spanish class, and those were 2 of the movies they played the Spanish versions of. But then I also took a trip to Italy for 6 weeks, and those are 2 of the movies that played on regular TV, but it was in Italian. Let's see what Leonard Maltin has to say about them. We'll start with Rocky IV. You know, it's funny, it just dawned on me. I just met Dolph Lundgren like 2 days ago. Okay, so this is what he has to say. Totally artificial and unnecessary sequel has Rocky doing what a man's gotta do. Avenging a friend's demise and fighting for the USA and world peace against a superhuman Russian champ. Still, in all, Stallone knows how to milk a formula and press all the right buttons, especially in a great training montage. I have a feeling Leonard Maltin and I do not have the same taste in films. Let's look up Karate Kid 2 and try to not get angry. Speaking of which, oh my god, the same day I met Dolph Lundgren a couple days ago, I met Chosen from Karate Kid 2. I just got pictures with these 2 men like 48 hours ago. Look, this is total coincidence. Total coincidence. The Karate Kid Part 2. Purposeless sequel takes main characters from original film to Japan, where they're confronted by Morita's long-ago arch-enemy and his nasty nephew. Corny in the extreme. All that's missing from climax is hounds and ice flows, but made palatable by performances of Machio and Morita, aimed strictly at kids. You know, Leonard Maltin is still alive as well, but he's not gonna be for long. Okay, let's pick another film. Stand By Me. I loved this movie so much that in 1990, I watched the entire film on a scrambled station, even after I'd already seen it maybe 5 times. What have you got to say about that one, Leonard? Affectionate Americana, looking back at boyhood friendship and adventures in the 1950s, and narrated by Dreyfuss, representing author Stephen King, whose novella, The Body, is the basis for this film. Irresistible and wholly believable performances from all 4 youthful leads. Only complaint, oh, here we go. The high volume of 4-letter words, decidedly not characteristic of the 1950s. Okay, I'll give you that. Next. Okay, I know he's not gonna like these because I absolutely love them, and I can already tell this is just not gonna be his type of film, or films I should say, but let's go ahead and torture myself. Best of the Best 1 and 2. The Philip Reed 3 Eric Roberts classics. Again, I love this movie so much. The first Best of the Best came out in 1989, that even after I'd already seen it several times, I found out it was coming on TV at 3 a.m. in 1990 on a scrambled station, and I watched the whole thing beginning to end, and I loved it. The second one, Best of the Best 2, which I love even more, I went to the theater to see in 1993. It even caused me to search for anything that Philip Ree had ever been in, and that's when I found out that VHS tapes for movies that weren't already at the store were really, really, really expensive. So there was a Philip Ree movie called Ninja Turf. And I found it in a catalog at a video store, and I said, hey, can you order this for me? And they said, yeah, it'll be $88. Adjust that for inflation, that's the equivalent of $193 today for a VHS tape of a 90-minute film. You can watch it now on YouTube. Anyway, so back to what's Leonard going to say about my precious Best of the Best films? All right, I got to brace myself for this. Okay, here we go. Best of the Best. Bomb! That's your review? Bomb! Yet another Rocky-style ripoff in which 5 young men must overcome their differences before they can unite as the U.S. karate team and compete in an international match. Top drawer cast is appallingly wasted. Followed by a sequel, Best of the Best 2. Sequel to the original flop bucks the odds and actually improves on its lame predecessor. 2 former U.S. karate team members set out to avenge the death of their friend who was killed during a shady competition. Roberts actually said he made this film to make up for the first one. What a considerate guy. All right, we'll do a few more. Let's look at Clash of the Titans. One of my absolute favorite movies of all time. It actually got me to learn all about Ray Harryhausen and collect VHS boxed sets of all his films. Clash of the Titans, 1981, British. Juvenile fantasy adventure based on Greek mythology. Olivier is Zeus and Hamlin, his mortal son Perseus, who must face a variety of awesome challenges in pursuit of his destiny. Oh, I'm sorry, I read that sentence badly, but you get the gist of it. Long and episodic with some fine elements, the taming of Pegasus, the threat of Medusa, but not enough guts or vigor. I'm about to rip this book into a million pieces. As is mainly for kids. Special effects by Ray Harryhausen. Okay, Leonard. Moving on, let's take a look at Bruce Lee's Return of the Dragon, the American version name of his film Way of the Dragon, because that was the name on the VHS tape that got me to collect VHS box sets of Bruce Lee films and every type of martial arts and ninja film that I could find. Return of the Dragon, 1973, Hong Kong. Country hick Lee visits relatives who run Chinese restaurant in Italy and helps fight off gangsters trying to take over. Many fine comic and action sequences, including final battle with Chuck Norris in Roman Coliseum. This was made before, but released after Enter the Dragon, also known as Way of the Dragon. Now, I'm going to tell you something right here. Leonard Maltin said he has not watched every single film in his books. He has a team that help him and watch the movies he doesn't get to, and he just looks over their review and edits where he feels needs editing. I'm going to guarantee he didn't watch this movie because he didn't trash it. Okay, I'm only going to do a few more. THX 1138, the first film by George Lucas. I had seen it twice between 1980 and 1983, had no idea what it was, but was mesmerized and didn't learn the name of it until 1995, the year before I got this book. What does Leonard have to say about it? Here we go, THX 1138. Futuristic tale in the 1984 vein about robot-like society where sex is forbidden and everyone looks the same. Dull script, but visually impressive. Lucas's first feature is expanded version of prize-winning featurette he made at USC. Technoscope. Okay, he didn't have much to say. So let's go for an obscure one. Amel and the Detectives. Because this is a movie I saw in the 70s, didn't know what it was, fell in love with it, spent decades trying to find out what it was, and I found out, with a little bit of help, in the early days of the internet, back in a Usenet group. And once I found out the name of it, I actually called Blockbuster Videos around the state until I found one that had this movie, and I went and I drove hours and hours to the store, rented it, hooked up 2 VCRs together, made a copy of it. It is a Disney film. It was copy protected, so it looked like a scrambled film in dark orange, flipping and this and that. And then I drove several hours, took the movie back, and I watched that horrible copy of mine for years until it eventually came out on a DVD as a manufacturer on demand. And it just doesn't get the love it deserves. Emil and the Detectives, 1964. Disney version of Eric Kastner's children's book about a young boy who is robbed and determines to nail the thief with the help of young detective friends. Filmed in Germany, where it was made before, in 1931. Okay, well, he didn't insert any opinion into that. It's just kind of a cut and dry explanation that could have been written by a robot. Until next time.